Hello, this is Garrett King, continuing the series of videos on Visual Basic for Applications, programming in Visual Basic for Applications for Excel. What I'm looking at here is the thick cylinder. We have two formulae. One is for the radial stress and one is for the circumferential stress at any element within the thick cylinder, where or2 is your inner radius, or1 is your outer radius, and or is the position at any point in between those two limits, the inner radius and the outer radius. The internal pressure here is P2, the external pressure is normally atmospheric pressure, which is taken as 0. So you're basically looking at the radial stress in the radial direction and the circumferential stress in the circumferential direction, and you're looking at calculating those two values at each position along the thick cylinder. If we look at the formulae and chart we completed in the last video, you can see we basically coded these two formulae into the Excel sheet. What we're going to look at here is how do you actually write those as functions. So if we click here, Visual Basic, you can see here that I have two functions. I use option explicit at the top to make sure all the variables have to be declared, and I have function sigma or, and I basically have to pass in 4 parameters here. P is the pressure, or1 is the outer radius, or2 is the inner radius, and or is the position at which you want, the radial position at which you want to calculate the radial stress. Sigma is the Greek symbol for which is used to represent stress, so that's where we get the name for this function, sigma or. This function, when you calculate it, will be a double, so the radial stress will need to be a double. Also here we declare two variables, denom and numerator, and that's just to simplify the formula. So we're going to calculate the denominator first, which is or1 squared minus or2 squared. You can see it here on the left hand side, or1 squared minus or2 squared, and the numerator is going to be this part. Now the only difference between these two formulas is you have a minus in this position and you have a plus in this position. Everything else is identical. So if we go back to the formulae, the functions, you can see here this numerator for sigma or is minus p times or squared, or 2 squared multiplied by 1 minus or 1 squared divided by or squared. And you can see then you just divide the numerator by the denominator and you assign the resultant to sigma or. When you're using a function, you always have to finish by assigning the result into a variable which is the same name as the function. And you can see here all I did was copy and paste the whole lot down here, and I changed this minus to a plus. Okay, so how do we actually use those formulae? Well, if I come here to Excel formulae here, I have a function option up here, which is the best thing to do. So I'll just copy across these two headings, Control C, Shift Insert, and then I come to here and I come to user defined. Make sure you pick user defined, and there it is, sigma or. The P is the pressure, I can just point up to it here. Or1 is it's up a bit higher, the outer radius, or2 is the inner radius. I've named those variables, that's why they're coming up. And or here we'll just pick the first value there, A10, in cell A10, which is the inner radius, 0.1. You can see there that it's calculated successfully, and then I can copy it down like so, and it gives us the same set of values as we have over here from the earlier formulae coded it, put directly into Excel, so you can see that works correctly. And I can come to sigma C, same thing, same dialog box. So P for pressure, or1 for the outer radius, or2 for the inner radius, and or here for the radial position at which you want to calculate the value. And you can see here that if I just put it to 0 points, that we have exactly the same value that we have in the original formula. Okay, that's great. So thank you for listening. And the next thing we'll do, next video, we'll look at actually writing VBA code to do the whole exercise and write these results to an output file. Okay, thanks for listening.